Glad you're here this evening. Got a special guest speaker this evening, Michael Doherty. He's from Searcy. He's a junior at Harding University and psychology major. I first heard him speak about a year ago in Searcy, and my first reaction was, I need to get him up to speak at Northside and to the area here. So further introduction will basically be done by Michael. So Michael, come on up and speak to us this evening. Glad to have you here in Harrison.
All right, there we go. So I'd really like to start by thanking Dr. Collins and thank Steve for letting me take his spot, kind of push him out of the way. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out in the end. I don't know. I've heard Brady Burlesworth over there. He's goes to school with me, and he texted me today and he said, "Well, this person's really talking you up." And I was like, "Great. Thanks a lot." So now I have somewhere to fall from. Thank you for that. We're going to try and make this not a total disaster. There's a thing, this terrifies me, honestly, because I've never been here. I know Brady. I've met his parents. Barely know Dr. Collins. This terrifies me. So the only way I know how to make this better for me is by starting out with this being a little lighthearted. So I need your help. So this is like call and response. I'm going to ask you a question. You got to help me out, or else this just falls flat on his face. So why did the one-armed man cross the street? To get to the second-hand store. Okay, it's a little weak. You got to help me. Call and response. Now, how do you get a one-armed guy out of a tree? You wave at him. Yeah. So this kind of sets it all up, because some people are like, man, I'm not quite sure if I should laugh at that or how I'm supposed to take that. And let me just tell you, this just describes my life. At school, people start talking about me. It's like, hey, do you know Michael Doherty? He's going to speak in chapel. Like, I don't know. And they're like, well, he's average height, Asian. And they're like, there's a lot of Asians at Harding. They're like, he's a one-armed Asian? They're like, oh, we know who you're talking about. Seen that kid around. It's like, great. So that is my identity. I've been asked to come and tell you about my life. And before I jump into that, I'd actually like to tell you another story. And that's about this family here. This family, I met this family, and talking to them, they were telling me about their time as missionaries. And I just asked them about that whole process, and they said, well, sure, the husband here, he went to church, he went to this revival, and he heard the sermon that said, a lot of people like to be senders into the mission field, but no one wants to go. And he thought about that, and he said, yeah, that's so true. And so he started looking around for opportunities of how can I be one that goes into the mission field. And he found this opportunity in Taiwan. It was presented to him and his family, and so him and his wife got together, and they flew over to Taiwan just to visit, check it out. And they're like, yeah, this is where God wants us. So they came back to America. They grabbed their 3 kids. They sold what they could of all of their belongings, sold their house, and bought one-way tickets to the island of Taiwan. And, when all was said and done, there's $200 left to their name. 5-person family, $200. This is a horrible idea. Most churches I know today just don't tell someone, hey, go be a missionary, sell everything you have, one-way ticket, no backup plan, and good luck. To top it off, they knew really nothing about Taiwan. They didn't know the language. They knew nothing. They just went. And this guy just said, hey, God, I feel God wants us here. It's either going to work out or it's not. And one-way ticket, he's going to work it out. And I said, okay, well, how did that work out? It's like, great. We lived there for 7 years. We learned the language. We got jobs. We taught English lessons. It worked out really well. And but the most exciting thing he told me, he said, yeah, there's this, we got this opportunity to provide foster care to this Chinese baby. And they asked if we would take him in until he got adopted to America. Yeah, sure. So they took him in, and the family in America that was supposed to adopt him, they couldn't adopt him. And now the orphanage says, well, you got to give the baby back. We got to find another home for him. And the parents said, man, we just can't do that. He's been in our home. He's calling us mom and dad. And he's just part of our family. Can we adopt him? And they said, well, yeah, sure, go for it. And this family's my adopting mother and father, and those are my siblings. And that's how this whole process started. Now, this is what I look like when they got me. Isn't that great? My adoption day is actually coming up October 31st, and you would think it's a great day to celebrate, but it's kind of awful because my sister and my mom plaster this picture on Facebook, and everyone knows about it. I'm like, thanks, guys. It's awful. So I know it's distracting, so we're going to take that off and just move on. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself. So you know who I belong to. That's where the Doherty family comes from. I don't really look Irish, I know, although I get told I have a resemblance. So we're going to go a little old school today, and I'm gonna try and explain to you a little bit more about myself and my life. I was born with a symptom called oral mandibular hypogenesis limb deficiency syndrome. Now let me try. Now this is what I look like every night. I go to bed. I'm an RA at Harding. I've often checked rooms like this. Really freaks the guys out. But oral mandibular hypogenesis limb deficiency syndrome. Now, let me try and break this down. Oral mandibular, so the first part is how my jaw turned out. It's just like my jaw is a little smaller than it ought to be. There's also some teeth issues. I went through some major dental work. That was really annoying. And then the hypogenesis has to do with I'm missing some joints in my fingers. If you notice, I have 3 pinkies, 3 thumbs, whatever you want to call it. They're all the same height. Missing a couple joints and some fingers. And then the limb deficiency. That should be pretty self-explanatory. I don't know. They told me it was a problem. I said, I don't know. It seems pretty normal to me. So they said that was part of the disorder. So, well, when I was born to my biological family in Taiwan. And they were devout Buddhists. And when I was born, I came out, and they thought, wow, what did we do? Devout Buddhists, and they believed wholeheartedly, they thought, man, we did something wrong to offend Buddha. And now he's just cursed our family by cursing our baby, and he's missing 3 limbs. What are we going to do? And obviously, the common sense for people like that is, you don't keep a curse around the house. You're going to try and fix your ways. You're going to try and become better Buddhists, become better people, and we're going to get rid of a curse and hope everything leaves us. This karma leaves us. And that's how my life started out. It's that's an awful start to life. I went straight to the orphanage. And my parents told me when they came and got me that they showed up, and I was just hanging out on an office desk. Now you would think, where could this story go? And the overall question for this whole story is, well, how did I end up here? We're going to fast forward all these years, and how did I end up here in America at Harding, going through high school, going to Harding, and then I got randomly asked to come speak at a church here in Harrison. It's kind of just a foggy memory for me. How does that all happen? My parents said they came and got me. I'm sitting on a desk, and they're like, cute baby, right? They're like, yeah, we're going to take him in. But the question is just filling their minds of, what's going to happen to this kid? We're going to take him in. We're going to adopt him. Can he walk? Can he run? Can he play sports? Is he going to go up and down stairs? I mean, what is this kid going to do? You don't walk into an office like that and think, hey, we got the next Michael Phelps, next Major League Baseball player. You're just like, what are we going to do with this kid? And that's what I love about this whole story, is because they walked in and they were totally caught off guard. They're like, what? I don't know what's going to happen. And obviously, all through my years, I didn't know where I was going to end up. And this is what makes it such a good story. It has nothing to do with the fact that I got legs, I got prosthetics, and I learned how to play sports, drive a car, I do the things that I do. I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but that's not what gives it a good story. And it even has nothing to do with my parents having the faith, that leap of faith to jump out into a foreign country, into the unknown, with very little to their name. And then they adopted me. I mean, those are great things. All those things are things that I hold near and dear to my heart, that I appreciate. But for me, that is not what makes it a great story. What makes this such a great story is that the only explanation, the only thing that makes sense for me in my entire life is that God was working through every step. It's the only thing that makes sense. And that's what makes it a good story, is because you can see God's divine hand guiding my parents to Taiwan, taking care of them, even though they had no idea what they were doing. Me, I was born a curse. My biological family is just like, this is a curse, got to get rid of it. And that's the only thing I've ever known in my life as an infant. And then my parents come along, adopt me, and it's like, this just doesn't come together on its own. I want to take this and I want to put it into two quick points, and you can sum it up into one sentence. And that's sometimes God works in ways that we don't understand. But he wants us to be faithful anyways. Sometimes God works in ways that we don't understand, but he wants us to be faithful anyways. A lot of people ask me through my life, like, hey, can I ask you how you lost your limbs? I was like, yeah, sure. I was just born that way. They're like, man, that's really something. I mean, sometimes I just ask these questions of like, why does God let good things happen to good people? Why does God allow babies to be born with a disability like yours? I mean, it just blows my mind. I remember one time when I was 14 years old, my brother and I were at a pool, and I don't wear my legs in the pool, and this guy came up and he's like, hey, I saw you guys getting along, and I thought your relationship is really good, and I just want to invite you to this revival. And this revival I went to, I had this little disorder that I was born with, and after I went to this revival, God healed me. And as a 13, 14-year-old, I wasn't quite sure how I would talk to him. And something that my brother said that really stuck with me, and I don't know if he realizes it stuck with me all my life, but it was, he talked to the man, he said, that's a great story, sir. That's really amazing that God gave you that healing. But we believe that sometimes God works in just the weirdest ways. Sometimes we believe that God can take Michael's disability and use it for something better. And that stuck with me. And I thought, maybe we're asking the wrong question when bad things happen to us. Instead of asking, why did God do this, rather ask, well, how is God going to use this? And that's a difficult question to ask. I want to separate ourselves from this story and this time. I want you to think about your life. I want you to think about the situations that you're going through, any struggles, any walls that you've just hit in your life. I want you to just think about your life and your situation. Sometimes God tests us, and we're just like, why? God, you're asking so much of me. Why are you're pushing me, and you just got to stop because I've had enough, and I've taken all that I can take. You got to stop. Why are you doing things the way that you're doing it? Like, if you just did it this way, I've got the solution all mapped out. Just do it this way. And God's like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we should do it that way. But in Isaiah 55, verse 8 and 9, if you go over there, Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, he says, for your ways are not my ways, nor your thoughts my thoughts. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. I think, God, that's crazy talk. I've got this easy plan right here. Just do it this way, and it would be so much easier on everyone. He's like, nope, that's not the plan. You got to hang on, because I got a better plan. It drives us nuts when he does that, because we want to know what's going on in our life. We want to know what comes next. Sometimes God's like, nope, can't know yet. And what makes it even worse is when God does it in his own sweet time. And you're like, God, I'm just asking you simple right now, like, hey, can you heal this person? I really need a job. I got laid off. Or I just need enough money to pay off this month's bills. Like, it's just been a struggle. Just answer me right now. Everything's going to be great. God's like, nope, you got to wait. If you look over in Jeremiah with me, Jeremiah 29, in verse 10, it says, For thus says the Lord, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you, and I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back to this place. This is Israel, and they're in captivity to Babylon, and they're begging for God for some answer. They're like, hey, God, we got a problem. You got to fix it, well, right now. And God's like, yeah, no problem. 70 years, you're free. You're like, okay. I don't know, I don't get that. Why would you wait 70 years? It's just, God, if you just do it now, why would you wait? That's ridiculous. Just answer it now. We'll be good. We'll move on. I'll keep loving you, serving you. No problem. And God answers that question, and it's never an answer that we like. But verse 11, we said, why, God? Why would you wait? And he tells us in verse 11, he says, for I know the plans that I have for you, plans of welfare and not for evil, so that you can have a future and a hope. He thinks so much farther into the future of our future that we don't realize there's this bigger plan. That something's going to work out, even though it's not right now, even if we suffer now and we think that is the worst possible way for God to help us. He's like, nope, just hang on. I got my thoughts, I got my ways, I've got a plan for you, and it's all good, all good. You just got to wait. I want you to understand, most importantly, that I don't know what you're going through. I have no idea what any of you are going through. I don't know any of you. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know how hard it is. I don't want you to think that I'm saying that just be faithful. It's easy, no problem, no sweat. Just you got to make the decision, be faithful, no sweat. That's not it. Being faithful is so hard. It's ridiculously hard. And sometimes it's like, man, it's so hard to be faithful. Is it really worth it all? I want to tell you something that I've learned in my life, in my short life, and this is all I know. I can't explain to you what's going on. I don't understand what's going on in your life, but this is all I can share with you, all I can tell with you right now, is that there's always a bigger picture. This is my family now. This is about 20 years after they adopted me, a couple of years ago. If you ask my family when they got me, or 5 years after they got me, if you would have asked them, where are we going to be in 20 years? Where are we going to be in the future? None of them would have told you right here. None of you, we had no idea. So when you hit that wall, this is my challenge for you. When you hit that wall and those challenges, is that just because you can't see the bigger picture doesn't mean that God can't, because God can, and he has a plan. He always has a plan. Always. So my challenge for you today is when you can't see the picture, know that God can. Know that God is faithful. And know that God has a plan for you and whatever you're going through right now. So be faithful.